Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, the Bearded Shaman of Gaming, and today I'm stoked, yoked, and running for broke as I bring to you another review at the speed of embargo. That game is Valley, a first-person adventure game. Valley is out on PC, PS4, and Xbox One on the 24th of August, 2016. In Valley, you basically play generic person, a character that's been looking for a mysterious artifact filled with earth love juice known as the life seed. And while not much reason is given for the search in the first place, one bad boating accident later, you're lucky enough to crash down 2 feet from a twisting mountain path that leads up into a forest right to the complex that might have held the mysteriously named object. Insanely good karma notwithstanding, from that point on you leap, lunge, sprint, water, walk, rappel, swing, lay hands on, and suck the life force from the levels on your way to discovering the dark secrets and twisting tale of treachery that occurred many years before. Let's see if Valley is Arbor Day in game form, a massive celebration of wonder and excitement that no one really understands, or if it's nothing more than Plant a Tree Day, the story of when a bunch of overweight and clumsy activists trot off into the forest to kill more plants than they saved. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Valley. Forest gremlins, G.I. Joe science at its very best, and robotic faith healers. Let's do this. Graphics are up first. You know, Valley is just this odd, colorful beast. What starts out as a fairly sedate trip through a small glade quickly turns into something unique in a very short amount of time. Valley's this different-looking game, and that's for sure. It uses Unity, and for the most part, many of the issues expected in that engine don't rear their ugly heads here, with a nice, strong frame rate throughout. But it's the effective use of pathing and color and change that really highlight Valley as you experience it. And also, they do a good job of hiding a couple of the issues that we do see. For example, Valley has no real temporal anti-aliasing, and the game can at times look a bit rough, even with the normal options all on their highest. Sadly, some textures look like they came from the Play-Doh factory of whatever Works Incorporated, resulting in looking at something up close and shrugging because it either looks like a tree trunk or an elephant's leg. However, it's sort of hard to notice that shit as you're leaping through the trees like the Munchie cheese and seeing what happens to a human when a fly hits their face at 300 miles per hour. Where Valley could have been a mess of movement and hang-ups, the excellent animation and level design means that throughout the game it's constantly moving you forward, and there's something freeing about that as a gameplay advance. Also, remember those times as a kid when you were running home and it felt like you were flying? That's the feeling you get throughout all of Valley, and it's a spectacular mix of level design and contained speed that does it. I mean it. There's some sections like the moment where your man suit learns how to sprint across water, and the blur effect in the water spray is the equivalent of hitting a water slide with a NASA solid rocket booster strapped to your town and country shorts. Really, from surreal forest to ancient decrepit military bases with questionable occupancy, Forest does a good job delivering visuals that may not always impress, but are never unsatisfactory. A pretty good presentation throughout. Sound, music, and voice.
They seem to have coexisted with the mysterious forest sprites. I find loose hints of Mesoamerican civilization, such as the Olmec, with their renowned colossal headstone sculptures dating back to 900 BC. Strangely, though,
by harvesting the high-energy yield orbs found within the valley, we pass their energy through the life seed, which acts as a sort of amplifier, magnifying the energy to unprecedented levels. The explosives we create here will dwarf anything the Manhattan Project could ever possibly fathom.
And of course, sound is up first. It's good, it's not great, but whether you're soaring 80 feet above the treetops in the world's first power-assisted attempt at achieving personal orbit, or fighting off forest spirits as you sprint down mountain slopes at ludicrous speed, it's all done well, and tonally, there are only very few moments here that are muddy or lacking. Environmental effects abound, with you entering the tight reflective confines of air ducts with that sound envelope changing around you to coming out into massive open glades with an assorted menagerie of nature's orchestras, all naturally playing around you, and the envelope is very well done. Now, what I would have liked is a bit more variation in your action sounds, as leaping for the 14th time in a row begins to grate on you, and repeated actions have little in the way of true variation. Still, pretty good sound. Music. Man, it's good. Have you ever heard a Gaelic flute and a sad violin make love? Boom. Now you have. And while mostly a mixture of classical instruments, the likes of which you would expect from a game about robots versus fairy forest creatures, the end result is a surprisingly tactile soundtrack mixed with everything from Gaelic influences, Celtic themes, and surprisingly enough, some heady percussion that's a mysterious little mix of native African tribal dances to something you would expect to hear on a street corner in New York. Now, while you would think that this was all over the place in its themes and progression, that's all handled really well and wraps up all the different origins and somehow comes out the other end all the stronger. Also, the dynamic moments like a particularly amazing piece where you're basically breaking the land speed record for a human wearing that loader from the Aliens movie, it's all solidified via theme and atmosphere. Outstanding music. And of course, that brings us to voice. And it's all done in an audio tape format, and while that does at times lend itself to William Shatner moments of people talking into the mic like this, for the most part, it's good, with story doled out in delightfully interesting little snippets. And what's even better, rarely are those snippets incomplete. You know what I mean? Those games where you're listening to an audio tape and they're like, the thingy's exploding and we into static. That rarely happens here, with each one fitting the reality of a person, actually friggin' recording an audio log and being able to hit stop at the end. So anyway, good voice, I liked it. Gameplay. Now, while Valley's setup is atypical, it's a person on a quest for a mystical item, and in fact, many times that would be the opening for a walking simulator, and has been for a good deal of them. The developers of Valley weren't lying when they said this is an actual action-style game. But like many of its kinds, the first 3/4 of the story in Valley is actually not your own, as you uncover the secret of the Valley and what occurred there many years ago, when a military outpost was built up around the location and the mysterious powers that existed there. But despite many games leaving you unconnected from that first experience of learning, here in Valley, it does something truly outstanding. While still learning about what happened, Valley doles out detailed upgrades for a thing called the Leaf Suit, which changes the gameplay enough that as you're experimenting, you're experiencing the further of the story. And you'd be surprised how many games actually don't really integrate you into the starting of the story as you're reading about people's pasts and so forth. It really is this organic engine of a mechanic pulling you forward via game experience versus just narrative, and the slick way in which you find yourself comparing you to those who came before you in the story shows a deft hand in including gamer in game and does a really good job at telling the story, but at the same time keeping you engaged. Now, while they call the suit the Leaf System, naming it after its ability to leap effortlessly through air functionality, the real power here is its connection to the Vedic period's belief in reincarnation and, of course, later Buddhists' belief in the Wheel of Existence. You see, when you die in the game, you come back to life, but a part of the valley dies, plants, animals, that sort of thing. Additionally, you can restore life to those plants and animals to bring the valley back up to its fully alive state. So in the end, both you and the valley are a massive life bar, with you sprinting, leaping, jumping, and double jumping through the world, Christ-raising animals and vegetation alike to keep the subtle balance in check. Because if Valley runs out of energy and life, boom, game over, and you have to restart that level. Now that might sound disconnected from the whole thing, but surprisingly, the story wraps all this up in a scientific wonder as well as a little bit of deep mystery of interconnected universes. And this would all be a shame if it wasn't fun, but it actually is. Seriously, the first time you sprint across water like those Sunday morning USA Channel martial arts flicks made on like a $2 budget, I'm pretty much going to guarantee you that you will be smiling. Or at least I was. Or for me, when I found out that I could upgrade my suit to run on train rails incredibly fast using a combination of science and the patented don't ask too many questions type of game mechanics. None of this is overdone, leaving you mixing and matching skills for the most part throughout the title. Soon you get the ability to harpoon old constructions from the past, which allows you to swing effortlessly through the trees as well. Now, unlike many games where the mysteries define the magistry, here every gameplay element is at the very least tangibly connected and explained to the point in the story. So you have this thing where you're not really sitting there thinking, this is actually just sort of stupid. And what's cool is while running through the fields and ancient military complexes, you're constantly moving forward with barely any backtracking, which is really surprising as the game ran around 5+ hours for me to complete. One second you're sprinting through the desiccated remains of caverns at breakneck speed, to walking through a lush valley, to platforming sideways across the side of a building, all the while hoping that your magnetic boots don't suddenly turn off. There is a lot to be offered here, and I have to say, I was very surprised. Fun factor. Okay, with all brutal honesty, I really didn't know what I was going to get with this game, and I wasn't really jumping at the bit to start playing it. But this is a complete joy. Valley is this sprawling, engaging, and yet really well-defined all at the same time title. It's not a walking simulator, though at times it has some of those characteristics, and it's not a full-fledged platformer, though at times you will be leaping luchador style between buildings and over oncoming enemies. And it's also not a shooter, though you will be tasked with subduing various inhabitants of the valley by basically shooting your spirit juice at them to placate them. If I had any complaints, it would be that I would have really liked a little bit more of an idea of exactly what the story was doing, because once again you're looking for audio logs, which means you won't find all of them, which means occasionally you're going to wonder how this one character saw this other character. Lastly, I would have loved some variation, as I said, in the sound design. But in the end, Honestly, this game is a little bit like someone throwing 4 books into a bag, shaking it, and opening the bag, and 1 book comes out, merging all of them. Because where walking simulators usually get drowned in their directed focus on narrative, Valley does one thing stunningly well. It remembers to have gameplay in its game. So as always, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. This is easily a buy. It's a good price. It's got a good amount of content, and it doesn't really overstay its welcome. It's contained. It's something that you can enjoy, and when you walk away from it, you'll feel like you played a really good title. And honestly, that doesn't go for a lot of the games we've been seeing lately. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Check out Reddit, Patreon, and so forth. Make sure to always follow me on Twitter. And if you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. Peace out, and enjoy the rest of your week.